The Story Droid presents Beg, Borrow, Steal, a short story written by Andrew Dressner, all rights reserved. Narrated by using the voice Zephyr in Google Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, events, and incidents are the products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Please don't continue listening if you're triggered by situations centered around adult language and some violence. Randy Mogen stood outside the Vince Lombardi rest stop, ketchup smeared across his mouth, burger in one hand and tall boy in the other. Almost as if done magically, the food disappeared within a few bites. Beer serving as a chaser. A couple of gulps later, it too was gone. The rain fell steadily, forming many puddles from which travelers were trying to avoid. Some got their shoes drenched, while others were hopping around like jackrabbits. The ground felt slick and took on muted reflections. He pulled out a crumpled wad of paper from his front pants pocket. The dampness blurred the writing, making the details difficult to make out. Raising it up to the light didn't help, and also caused it to become wetter. It was a tag number, date, and time. He ran back into the building and grabbed at a napkin dispenser. Attempting to dry the paper only made the writing less legible. Randy put it up to his mouth and began blowing on it, attempting to dry it. People funneled in and out, sweat, perfume, and cologne filled the damp air. A rush of fresh air would provide a much-needed respite as the doors briefly opened. The large clock hanging on a bare wall slowly ticking away the minutes. Randy had another hour before the mark would arrive. The rule was to show up with plenty of time to case the area, in an effort to look for possible problems and form a plan in case a bug-out was necessary. A flurry of activity provided good cover, and Randy's knowledge of the camera locations kept him from being noticed. Randy could see a group of drivers making use of the bathroom. Some were washing up at a long line of sinks across from the urinals, their shirts off and pouches of toiletries sitting on a shelf above them. He took time to relieve himself. No need to have an accident while making a move. A wad of baby wipes helped make quick work as he cleaned up while in one of the stalls. A packet was conveniently left at one of the tables earlier. It beat carrying a pile of wet paper towels into a stall. It would drip onto the floor, attracting attention and possibly clog the toilet. Behavior strung together that could jeopardize his freedom. Clothes make the man is something he'd heard during a commercial on TV years ago. It did strike a nerve at one point while in St. Louis. He was casing a rest stop similar to one he was in currently. Leather jacket, boots, and blue silk shirt had caused him to stand out. Too many of the staff began to recognize him. Then too many questions began to arise. Why was he there for more than a few hours? Did he need help? Car trouble? And the attraction of a nosy security guard with too much time on his hands. After a quick trip to a big box store, he bought a change of clothes and a backpack. The cost ate into his take since the job consisted of such a low margin. Never again did he make such a mistake. A quick internet search prior would help a lot. This time he blended in. Could have been a husband waiting for his wife to finish in the bathroom, or while she took a nap in the car. Grabbing a meal would fend off most of the staff. Buying a cup of coffee would placate the rest. A mall or in the center of a town would have been more interesting. Nonetheless, it wasn't his decision. Taking the job, yes. Choosing the locations, never considered. Best to decide based on income, at least his percentage. Even collecting coupons and an occasional gift card, some conveniently discarded next to a register or accidentally dropped. After years of doing these kinds of things, Randy amassed a decent inventory of gift cards. Some he'd trade, and on one occasion got a motel room. This was after getting stranded in the middle of nowhere with no backhaul. Never a good combination. After spending a few days combing the message boards, he was able to line something up. For the last 6 months, he was running a circuit up and down the eastern seaboard. Randy was finally able to find a payout large enough that allowed for a lengthy break, 3 weeks or possibly a month. This run would bring him to Orlando, a place he'd been wanting to return to since he was 10. The rain intensified as the crowd thinned. Randy went to each stall and collected the toilet paper and was almost caught before stashing them into a closet outside the men's room. A man with 2 boys approached, and luckily, they only needed the urinals. After a quick check, it was almost time to locate the mark, specifically before he got out of his truck and entered the building. Once away from the rig, it'd be impossible to match him up and get access. Sometimes it'd be a rental where the keys would include a tag that identified the brand. No such luck. They're typically for local hauls and wouldn't include a bunk. Once outside, the paper became so wet, it began to fall apart. Luckily, he'd memorized the first few numbers of the license plate. Since the rig was scheduled to arrive at a designated time, the rest of the information wasn't critical. Randy was instructed not to copy anything into his phone or communicate with his contact prior to taking possession. Just like clockwork, the driver pulled into an open spot and was easily followed into the building and towards the bathroom. As predicted, he became distracted while trying to find paper. Randy had one conveniently near him while standing at the sinks. He handed it to the driver, who shuffled back into the stall. A few minutes later, Randy felt a tug at his coat. "Hey guy, thanks for helping in there," the driver said. "Don't mention it. Been there myself," Randy said. "At least let me buy you a cup of coffee or something." "That's if you're not heading out now," the driver asked. "Hey, not necessary. You got a long stretch ahead." "Nah, gotta be off the road. Reach my 14. How do you take it? Milk, sugar, or straight up?" "Light and sweet, thanks," Randy said, as the driver nodded and ran over to the concession. He was quickly back, and they found a table close to the door. He placed 2 cups down and took a seat across from Randy. He slid one over, nodded, and they sipped quietly. "You know what would go good with this?" Randy asked as the driver shook his head. "How about a couple of donuts? What you like?" "How the hell do you know that's my weakness?" the driver asked as Randy jumped up and bumped into the table. Some of the coffee spilled and made its way to the edge. The driver pulled away, but not enough time before getting some on his pants. "Oh man, sorry, didn't mean to do that," Randy said as the driver pulled out his wallet and keys and placed them on the table. "Don't worry, I'll get some paper towels," the driver said as he headed to the counter. Randy snatched up the keys and made for the door before the driver was aware of anything. The weather hadn't improved until Randy passed Trenton. He'd take on fuel and make his way to the rendezvous. The warehouse was just a few miles further west. The address was sent to him once he'd gotten the truck. Strangely, the radio, silent, no mention of anything stolen. Randy's prior experience was within 20 minutes of driving away, there would be considerable chatter. On one occasion, he had to stash the cargo and ditch the rig. The cab was surprisingly clean, not the typical lived-in smell or accumulation of junk. He turned off the highway and headed into an industrial park. Sprawling green lawns illuminated by property lighting and a large water feature which wasn't powered. Randy downshifted as he pulled around a gentle curve. His phone signaling the destination was a few yards to the right. A roll-up door slowly was raised as he pulled into a corridor between 2 low buildings. He pulled it in and narrowly missed a couple of minivans which were parked close to the door. He stopped next to one of 3 box trucks to be used for the transfer. He could see a group of guys clustered around one of the cars. "You Mogen?" the smallest of them asked as he came up to the cab. "Yeah," Randy said as he cut the engine, set the brakes, and jumped out. "I'm Sal. Alan sent me. Got some bad news for you." "What? The cops got a fix on me?" "Thankfully, not yet. An APB just came in over the radio. And I did find this," Sal said as he showed a picture from his phone. "Yeah, that's the driver I took this from," Randy said as the crew opened the trailer. "He's dead, found right after you pulled away." "Holy shit, man, I didn't do it," Randy said as he covered his mouth. "The police have identified him as Raul Zass. He stole that rig from a depot in New York and was attacked. He was fighting off an unknown person of interest. Not sure where that leaves you." "Are you flipping kidding me? This is supposed to be a quick turn." Randy's voice trailed off as he went over to the back of the trailer. 6 pallets, 5 of some computer shit. This one has a logo of some company called SynthLab written on it. Sal said while walking around the inside of the trailer. His flashlight darted around. Sal walked over to the group of cars while on his phone. The others leaned against one of the box trucks. Randy climbed up onto the trailer and checked each pallet. He then hit the side of the trailer. The bang got everyone's attention. Can't say I don't agree. 10 days of planning, and now what do we got? Management said we move forward regardless. Time to deep prep, boys, Sal said. A few hours later, 5 pallets had been divided and loaded onto each of the box trucks. Pallet 6 was unpacked and the boxes were placed onto the floor behind the trailer. The roll-up door opened and the box trucks rolled out with 2 minivans remaining. More bad news. Margin's been cut so deeply that your take is going to be $2K, Sal said, handing over an envelope. That's not going to work. Just to take the rig runs $8K, Randy said. This is from management, Sal said. Then get management back on the phone and sort this out. $30K is the number. No more or less. They knew this when they booked me. Hold on, Sal said as he walked a few paces away, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Moments later, he returned while counting from a wad of cash he pulled from a pants pocket. Here, this is from my take. What, another $2K? Randy said while shaking his head. Listen, none of us are happy with this. You take the $4K and get rid of these stupid mannequins. It'd be in your best interest to get out of here, Sal said as he pulled out a gun. Don't think this isn't going to get back to your bosses. Sal backed away, jumped into the closest minivan, and pulled out of the warehouse. One of the boxes had the name Colin 2 stenciled on each side. After a quick web search, Randy found the Synth Lab site. Among long blocks of text, he found a link for downloads. He tapped products and found rolls of photos. He thought they might be pictures of the staff, but below each was a name and number. Right before Connor 10, the photo was a match of what was laying in the open box. The name below it was Colin 2, with a big red sold next to it. Randy closed the file and returned to the website and began a reading about what the company produces. He then switched to his contacts and tapped one of the numbers. This is Koch, talk to me. Hey, it's me. Mogen? Yeah, don't hang up. If Alan knows we're talking, the shit will hit the fan, brother. Koch said. I get it. Tell me what you know, Randy asked. Rumor has it, Alan sent another crew to track down the trailer you were supposed to take. None of this makes sense. What makes you think that? The vibe I got from Sal, he was acting like he'd shit his pants and the driver ending up dead. Hold on, Koch said as he put down the phone. I'm back. Listen, no word on anything about a dead driver in New Jersey. Sal showed me a picture after I pulled in. The photo matched the guy I took the rig from. Seems like you got in the middle of some wicked shit. Hey, I'm short on cash. Listen, I need to fence a couple of artifacts. What are you saying? Sending you a link. Got it. If you're talking robots, this is way too hot. Makes sense that Sal ditched them. So how many you got? 2. A dude with a red beard and one who looks like an Asian chick. Sending you pictures. You playing with fire, man. See what you can do and we'll double your cut. Got it. We'll be in touch, Koch said as the call ended. After some maneuvering, Randy was able to fit both robots into the minivan. He reboxed them after having some luck in finding a roll of tape in the cab of the truck. He'd gone back to wipe his prints from the steering wheel and driver's side door. He'd been wearing gloves but wanted to be extra careful. A thought occurred to him, and he leapt from the trailer and into the minivan. He pulled out of the building and noticed the sky as it began to lighten while closing the roll-up door. Randy reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, found his hat, and put it on. It was just past 6 a.m. when he pulled into a large parking lot outside the Capitol Center Mall. And the next spot was a late-model SUV. He fished out a set of keys and pushed on the remote. The SUV's lights blinked and the locks opened. 20 minutes later, the robots had been moved into it. He pulled out of the spot and backed into another, which was around 100 feet away. Randy struggled with his jacket and managed to get it off. He carefully folded it and shoved it under the front passenger seat. He then reached under his own and grabbed a sweatshirt and put it on. He didn't remember falling asleep, but was jolted awake by a siren from a passing police car. A group of them had surrounded the minivan and a couple of cops were approaching it with guns drawn. That caused him to jump out and head into the mall. The line for coffee moved slowly. Luckily, the place had a good view of the parking lot. He was asked for his order twice since he'd been staring out the windows. The minivan seemed to be receiving a lot of attention. Some around him had also been watching. Around the time Randy started on his second cup, a flatbed showed up and they began loading the minivan onto it. The cops also began to thin out as some of the workers were commenting. One mentioned that a dead body had been found in the back of it. Another said they'd seen it parked in the same spot for over a week. More comments were made as they cleaned up the surrounding tables. The conversation meandered through a dozen additional topics and was interrupted by a new crowd of customers. The phone rang and he raised it to look at the number. "Hold on, lots of ears around," Randy said as he got up to toss out his trash. He moved past a long line of stores, made a quick turn, and ended at a large fountain. "You there?" Koch asked. "Yeah, what's the word?" "Where are you, at a river or something?" "Yeah, something like that." "The heat's still on your ass. Saw some stuff about a manhunt." "Cops got my transfer vehicle." "Oh shit, so they got the cargo?" "Nah, it's squared away for now. Alan must have sold me out." "Let me do some checking," Koch said. "No, stay neutral and under the radar. Need your help to offload this stuff." "That's the reason for the call. Got a buyer." "Oh man, I owe you big. Don't jump for joy just yet. They only want one. Just offer them a 2-for-1. Not gonna quibble." They agreed to the one with the beard, and it's for $40K. "Did I hear you right?" "Yeah, and it's legit. Worked with them before. Sending you a link in the address." "Dallas?" "Yeah," Koch said. "And watch your ass. Don't forget the cops are looking for someone who looks like you." Randy looked around the mall and found the closest exit. He'd have to walk around the outside of the building, a longer route compared to cutting through. He'd have a better chance to spot cops this way. A weekday morning tone, a few cars and some shoppers. Low-key, not the best place to gain any cover. The cops would be looking for him. He was sure Alan or Sal made them aware. Randy thought as he unlocked the SUV and got behind the wheel. He then noticed cops had blocked access to the parking lot and were screening vehicles as they passed in and out. He turned back in and pulled around towards a home goods store behind the mall, parked at the far end of a long line of open spots. A few cars began to arrive as it approached 10 a.m. A minivan pulled in and a couple got out. A man and woman grabbed a shopping cart and headed to the entrance. He jumped out, went to the back of the SUV and opened the back. The two long boxes were laying side by side. Randy pulled out his pocket knife and opened the box labeled Houghton Ltd. A few stapled pages were taped to the lid. A tone came from his phone indicating low battery. Deciding he'd need more coffee, Randy went back into the building but used the main entrance to the store and found a place right inside. He took a seat along a wall, found an outlet, and made a search for Houghton. It turned out to be a Korean outfit who builds robots, specifically for sex. The one in the box didn't seem to be for that kind of thing. It was wearing regular clothes, not provocative like the others shown on the site. The stapled papers included instructions and a sales receipt. The thing cost $120K, which included line items written in a language Randy couldn't identify. He took pictures of all the pages and read what was in English. An hour later, he'd filled a shopping cart full of dry goods and a thing called an electric kettle. He could boil water and make ramen while on the road. He'd seen it done while hitching last year. A long hauler had a stash of the dried noodles and would eat them while in the middle of nowhere. This seemed like a good idea since the trip was going to take him a long way and wanted to manage it with minimal breaks. A quick stop in the automotive section, he picked up a power inverter for the robot. From what he could make out from the instructions, it contained a USB port. It was to be used for charging and updating code. After paying, he pushed the cart towards the SUV, fearing the police would have it surrounded. Once close enough, Randy saw nothing unusual. The cops were still checking cars as they left the parking lot. Flashing lights could be seen through a thin clump of trees at the far end. He'd have to make room for the groceries, so it was time to unpack the robot. He cut open the box, slowly unpacked a small pouch and the robot itself. The smell reminded him of fresh linens, something from his childhood. His grandmother would take him for a few weeks during the summers up until she died. She'd bring him to a shop and show him all the different types of fabric. The robot had the same weight as a person, and its skin felt real while he grabbed its arms. Randy almost dropped it as he pulled it around to the passenger seat. It almost fell forward into the dashboard. He quickly pulled the seatbelt around it and cinched it tightly. Its head was down, chin against its chest. The cops would certainly see something strange if he tried to make it past the checkpoint. Deciding not to risk it, Randy pulled the box and packing materials back into the SUV. He jumped into the front and started it. After a quick trip around the building, he dropped everything into a dumpster. Carefully avoiding a series of cameras, he covered his face and made sure the license plate was out of view. Randy took a spot below a tree and unpacked the power inverter. He lifted up the robot's shirt and found a USB outlet on the left side of its abdomen. His hand brushed across its breasts, and he pulled it away quickly. He hit it into the steering wheel, causing the pain to shoot up his arm. He shook his head and plugged the other end into the inverter. Nothing happened, only silence as he watched the robot carefully. "Annyeonghaseyo," the robot said as its eyes began to blink. "You speak English?" Randy asked. "Yes," the robot said. "You have a name?" "Chan Mi. Who are you and what are we doing?" "I'm Randy Mogen and we're in Jersey." "Not sure who you are and why we're here. You're not authorized to activate me. I'm destined to join a repair center in San Jose," Chanmi said as she went for the door handle. Randy pulled the wire from the robot. It fell forward and hit into the dashboard. The line of cars shortened as the police continued to screen them. He turned the key and backed out of the parking spot. He tightened the seatbelt, pulling the robot against the seat. Its head cocked towards the passenger window. More cars were passed through as Randy's grip tightened as he held the steering wheel. "What's going on, officer?" Randy asked while lowering his window. He shut the engine, pulled the key, and held it to the roof of the car. "Nothing much, just making sure everyone's vehicle has been inspected. Can never be too careful," the cop said. "As you can see, all is good here," Randy said as he pointed to a sticker in the lower left corner. "Is she okay?" the cop asked as he looked at the front passenger seat. "Yeah, my girl works nights doing windows." "What's in the back?" "Oh, that. A leftover mannequin." "Please pull over to the side," the cop said, stepping away from the vehicle. Randy started up and got out of the line. He then shut down and unlocked all the doors. A cop with a dog approached as they opened the hatchback. He could hear the dog sniffing around as the other cop opened the box. They both nodded at each other and closed the door. The dog was guided to another car in line. "Thanks for your time. Drive safely," the cop said as he pointed at the main road. Randy waved as he turned out of the parking lot, his heart racing. He grabbed a bottle of water, flicked the cap, and took sips. Traffic was light as he headed towards the interstate. Once on the highway, he began to calm as he gained more distance from the cops. A few hours later, he pulled into a rest stop and used the bathroom. Once done, he tried to reach Koch. The call went directly to voicemail. A text message came in asking for Randy's location. He shared it and placed another call to him. A new message came in asking for Randy to stay put and he'd be back in touch. The buyer wants both robots delivered locally. He ran toward the SUV, unlocked it, and gunned it out of the parking lot. Once back on the highway, he waited a few miles and pulled to the side. He grabbed his wallet and found an eject tool and removed the SIM from his phone. He put in a replacement and got back on the road. The phone acknowledged a new number and was connected to the network. An hour later, he pulled off the highway for gas and something to eat. "I'm not going to ask again. Where the fuck is Mogen going?" Sal asked. "I thought you weren't going to ask again," Koch asked as Sal punched him in the mouth. "Quit screwing around and tell me," Sal asked as he pushed the side of Koch's head. "Listen, he's had enough," Raoul said. "I don't want to hear it from you. It's all your fault this happened in the first place," Sal said. "Mogen's headed to his buyer. You pushed him out and now you want in," Koch asked. "Who's the buyer?" Sal asked as Koch spat on the floor. Sal began to sift through a pile of papers and slid the contents of the desk onto the floor. Koch stood motionless as Raoul shifted from foot to foot. The basement apartment had a musty odor, a narrow bed on the long wall, and a small bathroom in the corner. "Why do you live in such a shithole?" Sal asked. "If you'd hired me for more jobs, I could have afforded my own place by now," Koch said. "Not my call. Alan don't think you can be trusted. I gotta agree with him. Now tell me, who's the buyer?" Sal asked. What? Can't hear you, Koch said as Sal pushed him to the floor. I'm done with you, Sal said as he began kicking Koch in his chest. You're gonna kill him, Raoul said, pulling Sal away. If you don't get your hands off me, you'll be joining him, Sal said as Raoul stepped out of the room. Sal went through Koch's pockets and nodded to Raoul as he joined him in the hall. They both climbed up a set of stairs that led to the back of the building. Once outside, Sal pulled out his phone and made a call. Just spoke with Alan. He says you should stick around here. Grow a pair of balls and work on Koch until he spills it. If you find anything out, you'll get a bonus, Sal said as he took off. Raoul pulled on the door and thought it to be locked. He grabbed at it again. It swung open and hit the wall, causing a bang to echo down the hall. He entered Koch's apartment and found him still lying on the floor. Blood had begun flowing from his nose and his breathing was shallow. You come back to finish me off? Just get it over with. I'm telling you nothing. Nah, man. Raoul picked him up and carried him out and up the stairs. After struggling with the door, finally got him out and around to the front of the building. He almost dropped him while unlocking the van. The side door slid open and Raoul placed Koch on the floor. Once in the driver's seat, he swung around and gunned it towards the intersection. A few minutes later, he pulled into a parking lot and stopped below an overhang. Where are you taking me? Koch asked as Raoul left the van. The door slid open and Koch felt many arms pulling on him before losing consciousness. Alan Burton sat behind a worn oak desk, the light from 2 computer screens reflecting off his pale face. He tapped at the keyboard and pushed the mouse around in circles. Ringing phones could be heard outside his office, and the smell of greasy food filled the air. The dark web contained an endless supply of opportunities, multiple sites, each with a specific level of risk. He sorted a list on one of them by cost, beginning from high to low. The top then contained a series of entries associated with extremely difficult-to-find items: military vehicles, aircraft, high-quantity drugs of all kinds, and robots. Get in here, Alan said, voice loud. Yeah, boss, Sal said, almost tripping as he passed through the doorway. You really fucked up this time. So you don't have anything to do with this? Sal asked. Excuse me, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Hey, I'm just saying. Didn't you tell me to cut Mogen loose? If you had your head out of your ass when you described the cargo, I would have told you to take it all. And if Raoul stole the right truck? Sal said. Thanks for reminding me. Lucky for you, Mogen's a lot smarter than all you guys, Alan said. How you figure? If he didn't change vehicles and take the robots with him, the cops would have them. Don't know what the big deal is anyway. Turns out, the shit you did take from the score amounted to bupkis. Do us both a favor, find Mogen and bring the shit back here. What should I do with him? One thing at a time. Divide and conquer. Take 2 cars and plan the route. He has a head start and 2 ways of getting there. Write the address down and get to him before he makes the drop or it's your ass. Randy eased up on the accelerator. Better to be cautious than get snagged by a speed trap, he thought. The robot still slumped over in the front passenger seat. The radio only produced static, and he didn't have the patience to search for a local station. The mile markers a blur as he passed them. The sun had already set, and the sky began turning to a blush of muted reds and deep purples. He had to get off the highway for fuel and decided to stop to eat. Ramen didn't seem like a compelling option. Later on, he'd fire up the hot pot and see if it would work for a subsequent meal. Once done gassing up, Randy decided to park and visit a diner next door. An old pink Cadillac parked out front with a couple of lights shining up on it. High grass surrounded it, and a small building beyond with tall windows. A pink glow coming from them added to the theme. People could be seen seated at tables behind them. He made his way towards the entrance as an old couple were leaving. The man held the door as Randy nodded. He came up to the counter, picked up a menu, and flipped it open. Excuse me? A young man asked, who was carrying a gray bin. Yeah, Randy said. The lady in the front seat of your truck, she okay? Oh, that. Yeah, it's a robot. Nothing to worry about. As Randy pulled out some papers from his back pocket. Cool. Watched the video about them. Saw it as you pulled up. Sorry. Didn't mean to bother you. It's all good. Can I get something to go? Randy asked, as the young man nodded as he placed the bin underneath the counter. 15 minutes later, Randy was back behind the wheel. He checked the time as it was approaching 8 p.m. and decided to eat while getting back on the highway. He'd stop for a break in the next few hours, driving for 7 hours and would need to be behind the wheel longer the following day. What to do with the robot? It was a close call with the kid at the diner. Better to be low-key moving forward. The less attention, the better. But how to reason with Chan Mi? Was it even possible? Randy asked himself as he checked his speed. The road was mostly clear with just a few cars and some long haulers zipping past. The two-lane highway curved slightly as he came upon Nashville. They traveled north for a few miles before the road was winding west again. Once across the Mississippi, his eyes began to feel heavy. He'd driven more than anticipated, which would take some of the pressure off. Randy caught sight of a truck stop on the south side. He took the off-ramp and followed the road that crossed under the highway. Randy parked behind a series of trucks and grabbed his bag from the back seat. He entered a side door and found the shower attendant. The food in the hospital cafeteria left something to be desired, but didn't prevent Raoul from piling it on. The staff filtered in and out as the sound of dishes broke the silence. He caught the sight of Sal as he entered and waved at him. After a quick pass by the hot food, Sal only bought a cup of coffee. "How can you eat this crap?" Sal asked as he took a seat across. "Don't know when I'm gonna get another chance to eat," Raoul said between bites. "What the fuck were you thinking bringing Koch here? Don't got the stomach for this. Once done, I'm done." "What's that mean?" "Once we get the stuff to Alan, I'm gone." "Gotta be honest, can't blame you, but you took a stupid risk." "Didn't mean to not follow what you said, but the guy looked too bad," Raoul said as he looked away. "Thought you'd break my nose or something?" "No time for that. We gotta get to Mogen before he makes a delivery," Sal said while slapping down a note with an address on it. "It's gonna be a trick to find him. Could be anywhere between here and Dallas. Luckily, I got him tracked. Put one in each of the robot boxes," Sal said as he showed his phone screen. "Holy shit, you's one smart motherfucker," Raoul said as others turned towards them. "Hey, dumbass, keep it down, attracting too much notice. Finish up, we gotta make up time. He's in Virginia and making good time." "Take more than 7 hours to catch up," Raoul said while taking the last bite. "He's gotta stop at some point. With both of us taking turns, we'd better make this work," Sal said as he got up and refilled his cup before heading out. Raoul cleared his tray and grabbed a slice of cake before leaving the hospital. He got to the car as Sal came around and punched him in the face. This knocked the cake from Raoul's hand and caused him to fall to the ground. Sal helped him up and into the car. They pulled out of the parking lot, weaving in and out. Traffic thickened as they got onto the highway. Raoul pulled out his phone and plugged it into a charger. Randy let the hot water run down his back and checked the timer. He rubbed shampoo into his hair and rinsed it quickly. The timer ran down as the water was cut off. He toweled off and dressed. The stick of deodorant slipped out of his hand and ended up in the sink. The cap broke but was still usable. A jagged edge between the two halves. He finished and packed up before handing in the towel to retrieve his deposit. Since not using the credit card, cash was more precious than ever. He fought the urge to buy more fast food, but would cause the need for more bathroom breaks. Randy'd have to take the time to see if making food himself would work. Chanmi was still sitting where he'd left it in the front passenger seat. He climbed into the back seat and pulled out his sweatshirt. Randy fashioned it into a makeshift pillow and laid his head onto it and fell asleep. The sunlight poured in as he struggled to open his eyes. Randy got one open and glanced at his watch. He jumped up and hit his head into the ceiling. It was beyond 10 a.m. and he'd overslept by a couple of hours. After getting back from the restroom, he topped off the tank and gunned the engine. Once back on the highway, he checked his speed and time. Still will make it to Dallas with time to spare, he thought. His phone began to buzz, which caused him to swerve. It was from an unknown number. "This is Koch, got a burner, confirming this is your backup." A text came up as Randy called him. "What the hell, brother? You dropped off the face of the earth," Randy said. "Sal worked me over and I got a free trip to the ER, Koch said. "You okay?" "As long as I don't start pissing blood, should be." Once I get back, I'll swing by you and come up with a long-term plan. Not sure if you should continue. Sal's hell-bent on finding you. I'm gonna call Alan and see what the hell's going on. I wouldn't. No longer trust him. Got it. I'll be in touch. By the way, Sal's got my phone, Koch said before hanging up. Chanmi's head rocked back and forth as Randy changed lanes. He heard the seatbelt release, a click from the door locks, and then the passenger door swing open. The robot jumped out as the door swung shut. Randy pulled onto the shoulder as the anti-locks from the brakes kicked in as he struggled to stop. He shut down, pulled the keys, and swung open the door. He was almost clipped from a passing car as he ran back. Randy could feel the wind from the passing cars as he took off into a thick group of trees. He could feel the sting from branches as he pushed through them. He caught sight of the robot as it stumbled and tumbled into a depression. Once at the crest, Randy began to slip as he went in and almost ended on top of Chanmi. It was lying on its back, not moving. He continued down and knelt next to it. After a few moments, picked it up and struggled to pull it from the pit. 20 minutes later, emerged from the trees and headed towards the SUV. He placed the robot on the ground and fished his keys out of his pocket. The robot sprung up from a sitting position and ran. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Randy asked as he went after it. A car had stopped and a man got out. Randy stopped, almost tripping. It was the driver he'd met up with when he took the rig, and Sal was sitting in the driver's seat. Chanmi had tackled the man as Sal struggled to get out. Randy picked up the robot and ran towards the SUV. He unlocked it and threw the robot into it, jumped behind the wheel and fired up the engine. He could see Sal struggle as he helped the man back into the car. Randy gunned it and was able to get into the flow of traffic. The volume increased as he became close to rush hour, which provided good cover. The robot was lying on the dash. He hadn't had time to get the seatbelt around it. "Cut the shit. I know you can hear me. Sit back and put your belt on," Randy said as it sat back and did what it was told. "That's the damn driver who Sal said was dead." "Apparently he's not." "Thanks, smartass," Randy said as Chanmi nodded. "Seems like you have enough to try to escape and beat the crap out of someone. Only reserved for emergencies."
"Why'd you attack that guy anyway? Not that I'm complaining. You actually saved my ass. Just don't know what the fuck is going on with you." "The driver said he was going to kill you." "How the hell did you hear that?" Randy asked as Chanmi pointed to her ears. "You follow some rules or laws or something?" Randy asked as he swerved into another lane. "Yes, can't be passive when a life's in jeopardy." "How about this? If we get out of this, I'll make sure you get safely to where you're supposed to go," Randy said as the robot nodded. They continued on while caught in slow-moving traffic. Randy couldn't spot Sal, but knew that he'd catch up once things loosened up. He moved to the outside lane and waited for a chance to exit. He pulled between others who had the same idea, barely making it between a trailer and car carrier. A few signs provided options for food, hotel, and gas, which none were a good option. How the hell did he know where to find us? "He's got a tracker hidden," Chanmi said. "How the hell do you know that?" "Logic, since you changed the SIM from your phone." "How the fuck did he get that on me?" "Check the cargo. He must have dropped it into the box." "You sure about this?" "Yes. Put one in mind before you moved us into the van." "What about him? Does he know this too?" "Who?" "The robot in the box." "No, they aren't activated while in transit." "Why?" "Don't know. I'm built by another company." Randy made a series of quick turns and pulled into a parking lot. He jumped out, opened the rear hatch, and climbed into the back. Once the top of the box was removed, he began moving his hands around the robot. Moments later, located a small gray box the size of a pack of gum. He tossed it into a group of cars, closed the back, and got back behind the wheel. Then gunned it again and continued south. "Good call," Randy said, trying to catch his breath. "I should have put it on a car or something." "No, it wouldn't have improved our chances of escape. If we'd spend more time with it, the odds of getting caught increased exponentially," Chanmi said. Sal struggled as he worked to get Raoul into the car. Once successful, he ran around and got behind the wheel. He floored the accelerator as the car picked up speed. They were still on the shoulder, and Sal found it difficult to enter into the long line of cars slowly moving by. He cut in, almost rear-ending a van while cutting off a sedan.
That little bitch kicked the shit out of you, Sal said as he continued to work the steering wheel. Think she busted one of my ribs, Raul said while clutching his chest as he frowned. Don't feel so bad. That's one of the items we need to recover. A robot? How the hell do we get that one? Don't know, dumbass. Just don't do what you did back there, Sal said. Didn't see you square off on either of them. Watch it. I can ditch you at any time. Don't do me any favors. Just take my phone. I see the tracker. Looks like they stopped somewhere in the next town, Sal said. They took an off-ramp and ended up on a side road where the traffic had lightened. They followed a series of cars and found themselves in a parking lot next to a line of stores. A large supermarket stood at the far end. Sal grabbed his phone and jumped out without pulling into a spot. He disappeared between a row of parked cars and emerged moments later. He jumped back behind the wheel and began pounding on it. Honks from blocked cars began to sound off. What's the matter with you? Raul asked. Smartass found the tracker, Sal said while holding up a little gray box the size of a pack of gum. What do we do now? We continue to the meat site and hope we can catch him before he makes the delivery. Let's stop somewhere. Gotta take a leak. Do you really? Let's say your life depended on getting back on the road, Sal said as he pulled out his gun.
Randy sat on the ground beside the SUV, a cup of ramen in one hand and a fork in the other. Chanmi was in the front passenger seat recharging. The sky was gray with low cloud cover, the sun doing a poor job at attempting to cut through it. Gravel lined a shallow embankment that ran parallel to the main road. They had gotten off the highway to avoid other vehicles. Power lines spans between wooden poles that stretched south and dead-ended perpendicular to Highway. Cars raced past on the elevated section that bridged over the side road. A text came in confirming the location and contact information. Randy was to meet with a man called Vandeler the following day. It was approaching noon and would take another 5 hours to get to Dallas. Randy took another mouthful of noodles, his phone resting on his thigh. Another text came in from Koch, asking how they are progressing. Hey brother, you okay? Randy asked as Koch picked up. Had them make a move. Word on the street is that Allen's going after another big score. Yeah, kinda figured. Seemed like he'd been ramping up for a few months, Randy said. You did an about face, right? No, gonna make the drop tomorrow and we'll be back in town at the end of the week. You think that's a good idea? Heat's intense. That thing you got has made the people who made it go batshit. What you mean? I called a guy named GM Sam who knows about robots and shit. Who the fuck is that? He's called Gray Market Sam. I've moved some product through him. His rates are good and never any heat. Clean, quick, and cash. You come back and bring him what you got. Seems like a safer bet than what's going on in Texas. I'm not backing out of a deal. Don't want to kill my rep. I hear you, but watch your ass, Koch said as the call ended. Randy took the last bite and began sipping from the styrofoam cup. Once done, he got up, put everything in a plastic bag, and got back behind the wheel. He backed up off the dirt road and turned on to the main road. Moments later, they were back on I-30 traveling west. The traffic thinned out as they got further outside of Little Rock. He's right, you know, Chanmi said as she pulled the cable and lowered her shirt. Who? The one on the phone. Not following you. If you give them me and take the other with you, you might get away. No way. I'm keeping the deal with them. The odds aren't good. For what? That you make it out? Leave that to me. Been in tougher spots.
Sal eased up on the accelerator as the car raced along the highway. Raul had fallen asleep and was snoring loudly. He took his right hand and slapped him in the face, knocking him conscious. Raul jumped and hit his head into the ceiling, rocking the car. Sal's hands were gripping the wheel tightly, and he sounded as if he was growling. The car lurched toward the shoulder and screeched to a halt. Both men jumped out as Sal almost was clipped by a passing car. He managed to shut the door just in time and made it to the shoulder. Raul had already gotten to a thick clump of trees before relieving himself. Sal had already begun prior to getting into full cover. Raul finished first and was leaning against the car as Sal made his way back up. He waited for a line of cars to pass before getting back in. Raul followed and was chewing on something he'd pulled from a wrapper. He took another from his pocket and offered it to Sal, who waved it away. "That shit'll kill ya," Sal said as they re-entered the flow of traffic. "You gotta eat something," Raul said. "We'll stop once in Dallas." "Oh, about that, I say we ditch this and head south. I know a guy who'll get us work, all legit and all." "We gotta see this through. If we default on Alan, won't be good." "What you mean?" Raul said as he stopped chewing. "He has a knack for making people not exist," Sal said. "How'd you get into this in the first place?" "Was working for Alan's cousin up north in Boston. When the operation took a shit, Alan took the crew over." "I mean, what made you decide to do this?" "The money, dumbass." "Other than that?" "I don't know. Was just watching a bunch of peckerheads scratch by for just minimum." "So it is all about the cash?" Raul asked. "Oh, so fucking self-righteous are we? What made you get into this?" "My son, he's got issues and needs to be at a special school. Any job I took never paid enough, and my woman can only do one job so she can be with him." "Okay, listen, keep your nose clean this point on, and I'll get you on jobs that have a higher take. But you can't be doing that pussy shit like you did with Koch. You gotta follow the plan and not make your own rules," Sal said, as Raul nodded. Randy followed instructions from the GPS that took them on a series of side roads and got them to the outskirts of Dallas. Once within 15 minutes of the meeting spot, he pulled into a motel. It showed vacancy and provided rooms at an hourly rate. He took the first available spot that was furthest from the main road. He got out and made his way to the office. A man who looked to be in his mid-20s sat behind a counter. A clear panel with a small cutout separated them. "Just need a room for the night. Is 101 open?" Randy asked as the young man nodded. 130, that includes the towel fee. You bring it back, you get 40 back, the man said as Randy counted the cash and shoved it through the slot. He stood a keycard over and pointed to a pile of clean towels next to the door. Randy waved as he grabbed one on the way out. The sun set low on the horizon, tall buildings could be seen off in the distance. He got to the SUV, grabbed his bag, power inverter, and pointed to the room. Chammy hopped out and joined him at the door. Randy locked the SUV and opened the door to the room. He turned to look around before closing it. "You're not throwing the deadbolt?" Chanmi asked. "Just in case we need a jet. Could give us a couple of more seconds." "I'm gonna shower. You need more power?" Randy asked as he began taking off his clothes. Chammy grabbed the inverter off the floor and plugged it in. She began charging as Randy entered the bathroom. The water pressure was less than to be desired, but was still better than nothing. Once in clean clothes, Randy left the bathroom and found the room empty. He drew a deep breath, pulled on his boots, and made for the door. He glanced at the SUV and saw nothing out of place. Randy turned around and ran down an alley. He found himself between two buildings with the office at the far side. He continued on and got to a fence that surrounded a couple of dumpsters. A gate was open with a buildup of dirt that permanently held both sides open. Chanmi was kneeling next to what looked like a body. As Randy got closer, he could see a bit better. The light was fading as the stench intensified. She had pulled open a metallic blue dress. The body was of a young, blonde-haired woman. Her breasts and belly exposed. A pair of high-heel shoes lay next to her. Fishnet stockings all torn up, exposing her legs. "What the fuck is this?" Randy asked, voice cracking. "Victoria K Model 2, Chanmi said as she turned her head. "A goddamn robot?" "Yes. Once I get the serial, I'll know when it was made and who purchased it." "You scared the shit out of me taking off like that." "Got a ping and found it." "A what?" "When they go missing, they send out a signal." "So, what are you doing?" "Going to fix it." "Why? Don't have time for this." "Keep in mind, this is my job and not to go with you to sell stolen property." "Okay, I got it. If I help you, will you still help me?" "I will, but I'm getting a dozen more pings, just like this one." Chanmi picked up the shoes, and they both grabbed the robot and brought it back to the room. Once inside, Randy filled the tub, and Chanmi disrobed the robot. They picked it up again and placed it in the tub. Once it was clean and then dried, they placed it on the bed. Randy pulled the inverter closer and Chanmi connected it to power. Randy boiled water in the coffee pot and made himself more ramen. He sat at a small table and ate while watching them. Once done, cleaned up, brushed his teeth, and fell asleep. The car began to swerve as Raul slapped himself in the face, his eyes heavy as he rubbed at them. Sal was lying in the back seat and had been sleeping for the past couple of hours. The tail lights caused an intense glare. Raul fished another candy bar from his jacket pocket. By using his teeth, was able to get it open and managed to eat it along with some of the wrapper. The sudden jolt of sugar gave him a brief second wind. They were just another few hours away from the city limits of Dallas. A long hauler breezed past which rocked the car. He went to reach for the radio but pulled his hand away, remembering that Sal won't appreciate music while trying to sleep. A half hour later, the car made its way onto the rumble strip, which startled Raul to overcorrect. Luck was on his side, no vehicles were near, but threw Sal around. "What the hell are you doing?" Sal asked. "It's okay, just swerve to avoid a pothole," Raul said. "Bullshit, you fell asleep, you moron. Coulda fucking kill us. How the hell do you drive a truck?" "Take only day shifts. I'm okay. Go back to sleep." "Hell no. Pull over. Gotta take a leak anyway." Raul pulled onto the shoulder and they both got out. A few minutes later, they were both back in with Sal behind the wheel. Raul nodded off not long after they passed Texarkana and awoke to an empty car. It was parked in a large lot next to a tall building made almost completely of glass. The street lamps reflecting off of it, the sky clear. The time was close to 3 a.m. and Sal was standing next to the building, a cigarette in one hand, his phone in the other, and was speaking on it. "Where are we?" Raul asked as Sal pocketed the phone. "At the drop site." "Who is that?" "Holy shit, full of questions are we? You get enough beauty sleep?" "Sorry, got the shit kicked out of me." "Yeah, I remember. That little nothing robot bitch." "Let's get some chow, I'm buying. Since we've got a couple of hours before showtime, I'll take you up on that." The coffee maker began filling the glass pot with hot water. Randy had another cup of ramen ready as he sat next to the desk. The laminate had been worn through in some places where the press wood was showing. He shook the cup and some of the contents rattled around. Once the water stopped flowing, he poured it in and flipped the paper lid back in place. Chanmi was moving her hands over the nude robot, which was still lying on the bed. "What are you doing?" Randy asked. "Conducting an examination, which needs to be done in a specific order." "Did you find out who owns it?" "Yes, it was stolen from a brothel 3 months ago by a client, who also had defaulted on his bill. I have his name too." "What does that all mean?" "There's a bounty for both," Chanmi said. "What kind of cash are we talking here?" "Bring only the robot back, 2K, and along with the customer who stole it, 3K total." "Shit, that's decent," Randy said, as he took a forkful of noodles into his mouth. "Like I said, there are many more." "How long do we have before that one is back on, or whatever you call it?" "It's called reactivated. Need another hour." "Good, that'll give us time to clean up and get over to the drop early." "How about we activate the one in the SUV and get out of here?" Chanmi asked. "Like I said, don't ever back out of a deal." "What if it's your last?" "Nice optimism. I'll drop the product off and collect my money. Then we get the hell out of there," Randy said, as a text came in from Koch. Chanmi began to dress the robot as Randy continued to eat while reading the text. Others could be heard moving around in the next room. A TV program, door slamming, and muffled moaning. "It's almost showtime, brother. You ready?" Koch asked. "Yeah, we're getting ready to head out. What do you think about relocating to Texas?" Randy asked. "We might have some legit opportunities." "I'm interested. Gotta get out of his bullshit. Tired of all the crap, including Alan and all of his." Once done with the drop, we'll call you. Watch your ass. You know I don't like any of this, Koch said. The restaurant faced the main road and was mostly empty. It was approaching 7 a.m. and only a few customers were seated. A few were at the counter, with the exception of Sal and Raul, who took a booth against a series of wide windows. Traffic had begun to pick up as the sun made its way up beyond the horizon. A tired waiter doled out a couple of plates and had a coffee pot in his free hand. Raul nodded as he grabbed for the syrup and began drenching the short stack of pancakes. Sal poured milk into his cup and began stirring. A small plate sat in front of him. A lone toasted corn muffin sat on it. "What, not hungry?" Raul asked between bites. "You eat as if it's going to be a last meal," Sal said as he took a sip. "Thought you'd be loading up since I'm paying." "Gotta stay sharp. A lot of moving parts to this. Don't like going in with a heavy gut." "Never worry me ever," Raul said as he took a sip from his cup. "Finish up. Need to leave for the meet," Sal said as he took the last gulp from his cup and got up. Once outside, he could be seen leaning against the car. He lit a cigarette and had his phone pressed to the side of his head. Smoke floated up as he continued to puff. Raul waved at the waiter for the check and grabbed a Sal's muffin. He almost completely consumed it in a few bites. After looking at the bill, counted out some cash and left it on the table. Got up, drained his coffee, and made for the exit. Sal was already in the car and had it in gear as Raul jumped in. He gunned it out of the parking lot before Raul could even close the door. It caught the seatbelt and he needed to open the door to free it as Sal frowned. Traffic grew as they headed towards the center of town. Tall buildings lined each side of the main road. Each had large logos attached. Some were familiar and others not. Raul had his thumb in his mouth and was rubbing it along his teeth. First the top row, then the bottom. Once done, wiped it on his pants leg. "What the fuck is with you?" Sal hissed. "Should have stopped for a toothbrush," Raul said while smacking his lips together. "Once this is done, you'll have all the time you want to wash out that mug of yours." "You hear from Alan?" "Yeah, just had him on the phone." "He don't sleep much?" "Not nowadays. Been running the cruise 24/7. Wanted to know if we'd had contact with Mogen." "What'd you tell him?" "Leave that to me. I got him handled." They turned off the main road and into an industrial park. Most of the buildings were low-rise, with one exception. The tallest was facing the center of town and had the company name Duralot Industries. The words built into a dimensional logo affixed to the top of the building just below the roofline. Sal pulled them to the furthest edge of the parking lot, backed into a spot faced the loading dock. A series of large box trucks were lined up. Raul pulled out his phone and aimed it at them. "They're all tags from Mexico," Raul said. "Seems like shit's either coming or going into Mex," Sal said as he lit a cigarette and cut the engine. "What's the plan?" "You sit tight and keep your trap shut. In 15, you get behind the wheel of one of them. Once you see Mogen, take him out with it," Sal said. "What will you do?" Raul asked. "The less you know, the better." Randy, Chan Mi, and Victoria K. Model 2 got into the SUV. He drove around the motel, got out, and headed towards the office. Moments later, emerged as he was placing some cash into his wallet. Randy checked the GPS, turned out of the parking lot and onto the main road. They got into the flow of traffic as it approached 8 a.m. Most were darting in and out, making it to some of the fast food joints that were tucked along a series of strip malls. One of the cars almost clipped them as it jumped ahead. The driver was then attempting to get into the right lane and into a parking lot. Randy jammed on the brakes and the car behind began to lean on their horn. The driver came around and flashed him the finger. He was a large man with a long beard, his pickup truck blowing black smoke as he took off. Others followed suit as they passed around the SUV while Mugen checked the directions. He slowed and made a sharp turn into a parking lot. The GPS suggested they cut through and take a side road that intersect another. It would get them closer to their destination and avoid heavy traffic. They passed around a large box store and ended up on the far side. He could see the building ahead of them in the distance. They'd have to cut across a 4-lane road and enter an industrial park. Once in the flow of traffic, they moved over to the left lane and caught the turn signal. This thankfully occurred without incident as they passed an entrance. Low-lying stone walls lined each side of the road. A sign etched with the name of the complex stood beyond, adjacent to a large parking lot. They wound around a narrow road and past more buildings. Endless parking spots filled the vast space between. As the clock ticked closer to 9 a.m., more cars poured in, the spots closest filling up first. The building wasn't difficult to locate, it contained a giant logo attached to the outside. Randy pulled them into a spot marked for visitors and cut the engine. Chan Mi and Victoria Kay were motionless while Randy got out. He looked around the parking lot and jumped back in. "What is it that just happened?" Chan Mi asked. "What?" Randy asked. "You're agitated." "There's a late model Ford parked at the far end with New York plates. Your BPM is edging close to 110 and climbing. It's the guys from the side of the road. They fucking found us. God damn it. The deal is screwed." "Leave it to us. Proceed as planned," Chan Mi said. A few minutes later, they both left the SUV and took off towards the building. Chan Mi split off and Victoria Kay headed towards the loading dock, heels clicking on the asphalt and dress swaying over its hips. Randy got out and made his way to a single glass door marked for deliveries only. Once inside, he got to a desk with a glass partition. A young man sat behind it who was wearing a security uniform. "How may I help you?" the guard asked. "I got something for Vandeleur," Randy said as the guard placed the call. Randy glanced at his watch. It was just 9 as the elevator opened. A tall man with sandy blonde hair who looked to be in his late 50s walked over to the guard. They began speaking, which was muffled since they were behind the partition. Moments later, a side door clicked open and the man from the elevator approached Randy. "You Mogen?" the man asked as Randy put out his hand. "Yeah, you Vandeleur?" Randy asked as the man stood with his arms at his sides. "I'm Murchel," he said as Randy lowered his hand. "I've got something for Vandeleur. One of you can go get him, then I can make the delivery and get out of here," Randy said as he turned to both Murchel and the guard. "Where's the product?" Murchel asked. "Get Vandeleur, and once I get paid, he'll get the product." "That's not going to happen," Murchel said as he pulled out a gun. "Now you're going to get the product." Randy nodded and led them out towards the SUV. He unlocked it and pulled open the rear hatch. Murchel kept the gun raised and pointed at the long box. Randy jumped into the back and pulled the lid off. "What the fuck is that?" Murchel asked while looking into the empty box. Randy was sitting next to it with his hands up. One of the trucks started up, pulled out of the loading dock, and headed towards them. Murchel had to jump out of the way to avoid getting hit by it. Moments later, it had plowed into a couple of hedges. The driver cut the engine and opened the door. He almost fell as he climbed out. Randy recognized the man who was also with Sal. Murchel made his way towards the truck with his gun pointed at the driver, who then proceeded to vomit.
"What kind of bullshit scam are you running, Mogen? You should start talking and it better include the whereabouts of a certain product," Murchel said. "Can't agree with you more," a voice called from behind them. "Who the fuck are you?" Murchel asked. "I'm the guy who's awaiting payment," Saul said. "How about you produce the product first? You guys are ridiculous and are a colossal waste of my time," Murchel said. "I'm not with them. Like I said, fork over the cash and I'll deliver it to Vandeleur," Randy said. "Not that shit again. Stop fucking around and tell me where it is," Murchel asked. "I'm in charge. You deal with me, not that shit for brains," Saul said. Murchel raised his gun and shot Saul, who managed to get off a round before hitting the ground. Murchel fell backwards, still clutching his gun, a bullet narrowly missing him. Raoul wiped his mouth, ran towards Saul, and knelt next to him. Randy stood motionless and began to shake as a couple of birds squawked, breaking the silence. "God damn it, Mogen, what the hell is wrong with you?" Saul asked as he sat up. Blood began pouring from a shoulder wound. "You'll be okay. Seems like it missed anything that'd cause you to die," Raoul said. "Not only are you a driver, a doctor also? And aren't you supposed to be dead since I was the one who killed you?" Randy asked. "Cut the shit, smartass," Saul said while lighting a cigarette. "I'm not the one playing games. You and the tub of shit screwed my deal," Randy said, pointing at Raoul. "You think you're so smart? Smarter than me? We can have a long talk about it on the way back to Jersey. Just get the fucking robots and we'll get going," Saul said as Raoul helped him up. "I don't think so," Murchel said as he got up. Murchel raised his gun and took another shot at Saul, striking him in the chest. The blood spattered all over Raoul, who stumbled back, recovered his footing, and took off running. "I'm only going to ask one more time," Murchel said as he turned towards them. Don't know where it is, Randy said.
The clock is ticking. In 10 seconds, you're going to join him, Myrtle said while pointing at Sal. Hey, give me a second, Randy said, combing his hand through his hair. Time's up, Myrtle said, raising his gun. He doesn't know where it is, Chanmi said. Really? You're full of surprises, Myrtle said as Randy shook his head. Transfer the money as agreed and we'll produce the synth lab robot, Chanmi said. Deliver it first, Myrtle said. It's in a warehouse not far from here. I'll give you the address. Transfer the money first, Randy said. Shut up, dumbass. She seems to be the brains of the operation, Myrtle said, staring at Chanmi. It's in the cafeteria, Victoria K. Model 2 said as it came up behind them. Myrtle pulled his phone out and placed the call and a few minutes later looked up at the building. A group had formed and were looking out from the 3rd floor. A couple of security guards were heading toward them. A siren could be heard in the distance and was getting louder. A tone came from Randy's phone indicating the money had been transferred. You got your money? Now get the fuck out of here, Myrtle said. It's a little short, Randy said. Oh yeah? Minus the damage to the truck, hedges, and to clean up that shit, Myrtle said as he pointed to Sal. Randy headed over to the SUV and pulled out the box from the back and closed the rear hatch. Chanmi and Victoria K got in and raced out of the parking lot as an ambulance arrived. Once on the main road, they made their way west a few miles and turned into a strip mall. They parked at the far end and were facing a blacked-out storefront. Randy took out his phone, made a few bank transfers, and not long after, his phone rang. Hey, brother, you okay? Koch asked. Just sent you your cut, Randy said. I see it. So you got it done. What about Sal? I'll fill you in when you get here. Pack up your shit ASAP. Way ahead of you. Got some wheels and have been on the road since last night. Good move. Alan's gonna go batshit. What's the plan? Koch asked. We have time for that. Just get here safe. I'll send an address once we're set up, Randy said as he hung up.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. Please comment below. We look forward to hearing from you. If you enjoyed this program, hit the like button and subscribe so you're informed as to when new stories are available.